Look at a shaft of sunlight in your living room, and you'll see tiny specks of dust floating in the air. We used to think of plastic pollution as a distant problem, bottles bobbing in the ocean, or nets washed up on a beach. But if you zoom in close enough on the air right in front of you, you'll find that same pollution floating inside your own home. While some microscopic plastic is manufactured that way on purpose, most of what we encounter is secondary. As larger plastic items sit in our environment, ultraviolet light, oxygen, and physical friction wear them down. They fracture and shed, over and over, breaking into invisible microscopic debris. Every time you wash a load of synthetic clothing, countless microfibers wash down the drain. When you pour hot coffee into a paper cup lined with plastic, millions of nanoparticles detach into the liquid. And every set of tires rolling down the highway is essentially a giant grinding wheel, leaving behind a fine mist of synthetic rubber. We are living inside a cloud of our own making. Simply existing in modern society means we are continuously generating and then immediately consuming this synthetic dust. We take in these fragments in two main ways. We eat and drink them through contaminated water and food, and we breathe them straight into our lungs. Normally, our digestive and respiratory systems act as a filter, but many of these particles, specifically nanoplastics, measuring less than 1 micrometer across, are so infinitesimally small that they bypass those filters entirely. They literally slip right through the tight junctions connecting the cells that line our gut and our lungs. Once they cross that biological wall, there's nothing left to stop them. They drop directly into our bloodstream, turning our vascular system into a transit highway. Sometimes they don't even need to cross a barrier. Clinical researchers recently discovered that patients receiving intravenous therapies are directly infused with microplastics. The standard plastic tubes and bags used in hospitals shed these tiny fragments straight into the patient's veins. Our evolutionary defenses simply aren't built to recognize or block these materials. What starts as a waste management problem in the outside world effortlessly becomes an internal circulatory hazard. Inside the blood, the plastic particle enters a highly reactive fluid environment. Because of its raw surface chemistry, it instantly begins attracting and collecting a thick coat of human blood proteins. Biologists call this a protein corona. Molecules like albumin and hemoglobin crash into the rigid plastic, bending and warping to fit around it. Because shape dictates function, these trapped proteins fail. They can no longer pick up oxygen, deliver nutrients, or transport medications. The physical damage extends to the cells themselves. The rough, sticky surface of these circulating plastic particles causes passing red blood cells and platelets to catch and clump together in abnormal groups. These growing clumps of cells and plastic drag against the fragile lining of our blood vessels, the vascular endothelium. They snag and adhere to the walls, creating microscopic physical roadblocks. Just by existing inside us, the physical structure of microplastics disrupts the mechanics of our blood. They act as microscopic snags that trigger unnatural clotting and pave the way for serious vessel damage. The physical hazard is only half the problem. These particles also act as toxic vectors, carrying a concentrated chemical payload deep into our tissues. Plastics are manufactured with a host of chemical additives, like BPA and phthalates, to make them flexible or fire-resistant. Once submerged in the warm fluid of the bloodstream, these endocrine-disrupting chemicals slowly leach out of the plastic matrix and absorb directly into the surrounding blood. But the body doesn't ignore this invasion. Our immune system deploys white blood cells called macrophages to hunt down the foreign object. The macrophage tracks the particle and swallows it whole. But the macrophage faces a biological impossibility. It routes the plastic to its cellular stomach, the lysosome, to digest it with enzymes. Those enzymes do nothing to synthetic polymers. Instead, the sharp edges of the plastic puncture the lysosome, spilling acidic enzymes into the macrophage and killing the immune cell from the inside out. Other immune cells arrive to clean up the dead macrophage, only to swallow the exact same plastic particle and suffer the exact same fate. This creates an endless loop of cell death, constantly flooding the surrounding tissue with distress signals. All those localized cellular distress signals add up. When millions of white blood cells are constantly dying in this unwinnable war, the entire body slips into a state of chronic systemic inflammation. This background level of severe inflammation, combined with the steady drip of leached plasticizers, actively scrambles our internal communications. It disrupts how our body regulates cortisol, impairs our insulin sensitivity, and throws our thyroid functions entirely out of balance. Inside our arteries, physical abrasions from sharp plastics and constant chemical inflammation cause fatty plaque to rapidly build up on the vessel walls. The inflammation makes these blockages highly unstable and prone to rupturing. In the bloodstream, these synthetic fragments function as active drivers of cardiovascular and metabolic disease, embedded directly in the pathways of chronic cellular damage. We cannot simply run human blood through a sieve to remove this contamination. The pollution is already inside us, reacting with our cells right now. Our only viable option for stopping this microscopic invasion is to completely overhaul how we produce, use, and discard synthetic materials on a global scale.